Well, how do there, chums? 'Tis I, Captain of the Steves, and today, chums, for you guys in the viewerverse, I've got this little sort of quandary going on inside of my head. A little battle, if you will, inside of this noggin of mine. Is the void ever going to be a thing? And is the void already a thing that's hinted inside of the lore? And is it tangible? Can we actually visit parts of the void now? Is the void creeping into our own universe? And is the realm of glass the same place? Or is it something completely different? Can we see symptoms of both the void and the realm of glass in current iteration of game? And is anything going to happen in the following year when it comes to the void and also the realm of glass? And I'm going to be looking at both people in this video, so strap on in, here we go! So we're going to start off talking about the void. Now, where's the best place to start talking about the void? It's good old Ariadne, people in the viewerverse. Heck yes, you don't know who Ariadne is. It's this little person standing at the top of the very first ramp inside of the spatial anomaly that looks like Hello Kitty went through a freaking blender. Hello there, Ariadne. So Ariadne, during the weekend missions about 2 years ago, went missing into the void. They went on board a dark freighter and never to return. You're thinking, well, she's standing right there. She is there. What are you on about? No, this is a doppelganger. This is like a clone of Ariadne, people. Heck yeah, this one isn't real. And during the same weekend mission lore, Hesperus actually created said void or some sort of separate simulation alongside of the Korvax, and it caused some sort of meltdown within inside the Korvax hive mind, or something weird happened where a shed load of Korvax died getting sucked into said void or something. Yeah, so all that weekend mission lore was freaking darn awesome, and I'm hoping that it comes in as a side arc or story arm inside 2023. The main reason I say that is there's actually a title that's actually linked to it, the Rift Walker, and there's no way for other people to get it unless they do bring it into iteration. Up there is a link to all of the lore from that weekend missions. So, is there still mention of the void inside of game now and inside of story arc? Well, yes, there is. If you go to the Quicksilver Merchant, Johnny5, hello there, my little synthesis droid, carry on through his menu list. It's quite freaking big, isn't it? It's quite extensive. But you're going to find the void egg. So, it's an egg that came from the void. One can only assume because that's its freaking name and label. And it does mention about some sort of strange sort of sounds or some sort of melody. There was a whole thing where we had to follow a tune, a melody in space to activate our void eggs when they first came into iteration. No longer a thing. There's also the void husk. Again, it's a void sort of thing. And again, it still mentions about echoes and this strange sort of melody. There's also a plate stem and there's also a compound bulb. Neither of them really mention void. It's only the void husk that does. But these are sort of organic metallic type structures, really. Now, where did we start first learning of the void and also the realm of glass? Well, it was in abandoned buildings. Now, abandoned buildings are sort of like one structure inside of game. That's all they were limited to at the start. But you can see here, this is a minor settlement that's abandoned. It's a whole abandoned system now that we've got. And you can see all this sort of slimy metallic ooze that's appearing pretty much everywhere. It almost looks like pugnium in the same sort of coloration of the pugnium sort of icon, you know, the purpley sort of stuff. Now, abandoned buildings have got some very intriguing lore. I'm going to hit up an abandoned building. We're going to go over there. We're going to read a snippet of lore. So abandoned buildings were the only place you saw this sort of weird pustular stuff when No Man's Sky came into iteration. But now we've got whole planets that are abandoned. We've got whole systems that are abandoned where you can see all this void creep. You even see it in the stations, which we'll get to in a moment. But let's go to an abandoned building, people in the viewerverse. So there you go, I'm touching down next to an abandoned building. So this is the building that I'm on about. These have been here quite some time. These have been here for ages. This was the first thing that we saw that ever came into the iteration that had this sort of voidy type, weird pustular sort of stuff in there, this organic material. So yeah, if you take off this residual goop, then you get to read some of the lore snippets. Now this lore snippet inside of this terminal is quite intriguing, especially for this video, because it does mention where do the Sentinels come from. No ships are ever seen arriving to deposit them, yet they have spatial drives that can appear on any planet, which is pretty darn freaking interesting. Yeah, bit like our Nexus in a roundabout way. But we'll get to that later too, people. Yes, do they build themselves from resources on the worlds that they infest? Like a mechanoid virus, drawing from the host body to metastasize new matter. Metastasize, yes. Interesting. So, is all this sort of voidy type stuff, this purplish sort of slimy type gunk, is it a byproduct of the Sentinels spawning into systems? Korvax science speaks of metals in their makeup that should not exist in our age of the universe. No one has ever seen them built. They are simply here, as if the universe expressed them into existence. There's also that red sort of blinking eye, the crimson eye, and that plays into quite a lot of the lore when it comes into the Sentinels, the red crimson. Yes, you get to see that sort of noted a fair bit, even in this video sequences that I'm showing today. So now we're up in an abandoned system inside of an abandoned station. A station that's abandoned, people, yes. And you can see here that it's been sort of evacuated. But there's no sort of reason as to why it's been evacuated. What caused the people to leave this system? So it was a system that had life. All the planets in this system had life. One of them I've actually named large Gek-like creatures. They're gone now. They're gone. It's completely evacuated. No reason, no sort of lore as to why it's been evacuated. Pretty odd. But yes, there's been an update. Hello Games put it out there and changed the system to an abandoned system for whatever reason. Don't know. I mean, yes, this was a system that I frequented quite often, and then it became like this. It wasn't like this until an update dropped, and now it is like this. This station has all gone very red, very angry. It's all smashed to shite, and inside of here you can see there's cables hanging down, but it's got that purple slime everywhere that looks like pugnium of some kind. So I am wondering whether this might be a byproduct of some kind to do with the Sentinels infesting a system. Now, when I say infesting a system, we've actually got infested nested planets as well. So yeah, and on here you've got these Titan worm burrows. So yeah, and these are very organic. So when it comes to organic life forms inside of No Man's Sky, we didn't have any sort of horror or biological sort of entities when No Man's Sky first dropped. I mean, yes, we had the eggs next to the abandoned buildings that gave us those little horrors, but that's been expanded upon massively, especially when the Abyss dropped and we got the abyssal eyes and the abyssal horrors. We also got those weird piranha fish that chase us down. But now we have these. These are worm babies that appear inside of the systems. Now, these appeared inside of the Emergence expedition, but they've now been carried into game and you can pick up the vile spawn and stuff. But this came after the giant worms that leap over the planets that appeared, I believe, in Visions or Prisms. It was one of the old next gen. It was one of them anyway. But yes, they appeared after the giant worms. But again, these are giant biological horror creatures. So can we actually own anything right now that's related to the Void? Yes, the living ship. It comes from the Void egg. So technically it comes from the Void. You can only but assume if you buy a chicken's egg or a duck egg, it's going to come from either a chicken or a freaking duck, isn't it? Well, this one came from a Void. So it's a Void egg. So yeah, we've got these living ships. And yes, they can do a fair bit more. And yes, we can expand their actual cargo space. And we've also got sort of scanners for them now and things and whatnot. But you can see here all my tech in here is broken, because you could actually have more inside your general space, but now it's all inside of the organ chamber. A lot of it is overloaded inside of my ship, and I haven't sorted it out yet. But it does mean we've got a shed load of extra organic space inside of the organic chamber, or storage space, whatever you want to call it, tech space. And yeah, we haven't got a lot of tech for it, so you can't get the equivalent of like a positron ejector or missile launchers or anything like that. So they're still greatly underpowered and utilised less than any other ship inside of game. They still need some work. And we've also got the organic frigates that have come into the verse, people. Now, we've summoned these using a dream aerial, which sort of latched onto their resonance, I guess, and pulled them into the verse. I'm not too sure on how it actually worked. It didn't really mention a melody. At least I don't think it did. I mean, we did when we found our living ships, but there we go. Here's the actual living Leviathan-y type ships, and yeah, they're like space whales. We were asking for space whales for some time, and this is what's been delivered into the actual verse. In a roundabout way, they're also labelled as megafauna. and we have been asking for megafauna for some time, but this is what we got given, and they have come into the verse, and I can only but assume that they're from the Void, because they look very much like the living ships that came from the Void Egg, so that's why I've associated them. We've also got the sort of organic looking multi-tools, alien multi-tools as they're called, but they look quite organic. They almost look in keeping with the sort of stuff that we see inside of the abandoned systems. At least I feel they do. So that's everything that I can think of when it comes to the Void, apart from the spatial anomalies that you can summon in. There are a couple linked to the Void there, like the containment cube that's got the living worm in it, but it's also got a Sentinel Walker in there, which is a bit of a crossover. Now we're going to be looking at the Realm of Glass in a moment. The only other place that I can think that there's a crossover is on the derelict freighters, because on the derelict freighters sometimes you get the little Sentinel sort of sentries going around shooting at you, and you also get the cannons that drop down and try and shoot you where the AI has gone wrong. Could that be Sentinel? It could be, but it's also got the voidy type creep in there, and it's got those little horrors that scuttle up the walls and things and shoot slime at you in those pulsating egg sacs. And it's also got the Jalafash that come at you as well, which were also introduced in the Abyss update. But anyway, on to the Realm of Glass. Okay, so people, Sentinels have always had a mention, and you have always come across Sentinels. I mean, they police the planets, don't they? And they've always been there since the dawn of freaking time. But when you hit on up portals, you do get your first sort of snippets of lore when it comes around about the Sentinels. That is, if you haven't hit up any plaques on monoliths, because they also mention Sentinel lore every now and again too. But there you go, Sentinels inbound. As soon as you interact with one of these portals, you're going to get something along those lines. You're also going to mention of the Crimson, so it almost feels like the Atlas has eyes upon you, or is it eyes from the Realm of Glass? Now, a lot of the time when you see the red crimson sort of light, it's usually behind a glass sort of screen of some kind, isn't it? Like inside of the abandoned terminals, or in sorts of other sorts of machinery that looks similar to that. So it does make you wonder whether the Crimson Eye has got something to do with it. I mean, some people say that the Crimson Eye could be a standby light, like on your own TV or whatever, and you're not born into your actual body until you log into the game. So really breaking the third frickin' wall. Mind-blowing. But yes, you can keep just closing these sort of portal sort of terminals down and going back in and reading the lore. There's not too much to get through. There is a little, but not much. So up until the Sentinel update, we just had Sentinel drones, Sentinel dogs, and Sentinel walkers. We now have these giant Sentinel pillars, lots of new Sentinel types, including that sort of Minotaur that you saw walking around there. And we've also got some more lore that's popped in. Now, remember at the start we spoke to Hello Kitty Face that went for a blender. Yeah, Ariadne, when you actually interact with one of these boundaries, these Sentinel sort of boundaries, the boundary activated terminal here, you can see here when you go to access logs, it comes up with a very curious bit of code. Override code Ariadne, but it's replaced the A with a 4 and also a couple of other numbers there, but that's Ariadne. So Ariadne, when she went missing into the void, did she make contact with the hive mind? Won't you join us? Won't you sing? Won't you scream? And it's the sing bit there that sort of rings out to me, because the whole melody with the actual egg and the choruses that we had to follow all that time ago, it makes me wonder whether the Void and also the Realm of Glass, whether they've got some sort of tie-in. Are they the same place? Is this Void creep the byproduct of the Realm of Glass being ruptured and accessed? Very interesting. Anyway, the Abyss smiles upon you. It's a very odd one, isn't it? It really is. Yes, and it mentions like the hive. The hive, you'd imagine it's many, not singular. So it's not the Atlas, is it? Or is it? It's hard to say. Anyway, this one's got an exotic multi-tool in as a sort of side note, and I'll give you some coordinates in a moment, so you can come and grab this if you want it, people in the viewerverse. Anyway, we're just gonna exit for a moment. But yes, let me get you the actual coordinates for that. So let's go into your camera mode, and let's get you the coordinates. Oh, you can't really see it against that red platform. That red platform, I'm going to give that a mention in a moment. But there we go. There's the coordinates on the screen now. I've made them nice and large for these, so you can go and hit that one up. Now, if you don't see my base here, because I've got a base at this Sentinel sort of tower, if you don't see my base, I give you the actual X and Y coordinates, and I give you the planet name as well. So there you go, I'll make those a little bit larger for you so you can see them too. And just to give you an idea of the planet and system, this is in Euclid. I'm actually in normal mode at the moment, not that mode actually matters, but yeah, I'll be hitting up the actual discoveries page in a moment. There's that little minotaur up there, you can see my base as well. But there we go, it's on this planet, Semboronons in NMS Magaffagut, and that was discovered by Micnax Gaming, another awesome YouTuber on the side of, yeah, he does No Man's Sky content too. So yeah, go check him out. Anyways, there we go. So that red sort of warning panel, if you like, with the crisscross sort of matrix that almost makes all those sort of triangles, looks very much like the shields that the Sentinels generate. And you've also got this sort of warning code text sort of falling matrixy style here. Very interesting. I did a video a little while ago on is there a warning in No Man's Sky. I put a link up there. Go watch that, because it really does get the old brain matter sort of wondering. It does. So I've just called in my other ship. I'm just going to jump in and out of it just to make it my main ship. And I'm thinking, you know, they've got the exotic multi-tool in there. Is it related to the Sentinels? And if it is related to the Sentinels, since that's the only place you can find that exotic sort of multi-tool, what about these ships? Are they Sentinelized ships? I don't know where the exotic ships come from. I mean, all the other ships is kind of obvious, isn't it? You know, which sort of race they belong to. But what race does the exotic ship belong to? I've always thought maybe it was the Gek first spawn or something, because they look quite regal, you know? But I could be wrong. I'm now wondering whether they might be Sentinelized. We go back to that in a moment. Anyways, I'm looking at this sort of machinery on one of these sort of exotic sort of alien biomes. Now you can see here it's not covered in slime. It hasn't got any of that sort of void creep attached to it. Yet it does look like it's some sort of portal, doesn't it? And when you actually read the lore here, it links into Dalamon. And I think it even mentions a little bit of the Aeons or the Aerons as they used to be known as, which are Sentinels. So I am wondering whether they're going to flip into use at some point, and they're going to be the entry point into the realm of glass or into the void, one or the other. But yeah, let us know your thoughts and feelings on these fell boundaries inside of the video comments. I have done videos on these fell boundaries in the past and whether they might become portals into another realm, which I put a card in the top right hand corner if I can find it. Next up is the station overrides. Now they've got the station overrides in game. They're in game as mission rewards, and you can actually use them at this terminal, and at the moment it just says that they're counterfeit and don't do anything. They just haven't been programmed into iteration properly as yet, and it's almost like Hello Games are holding on to that little key, because I honestly think they're going to do more than just do something with the flight paths or stop Sentinel scanning you inside of the system. And the core in the back there does look very Sentinelized in a roundabout way, doesn't it? More so than anything else in the game anyway. It does look like a Sentinel sort of hive core or something. Who freaking knows? Pirate stations are relatively new into the verse. People inside the viewerverse came with outlaws and stuff, but inside of here you've got these giant Sentinel walkers that look like they're being worked on or something, or at least torn to parts for whatever reason. Maybe we might get some Sentinelized multi-tools coming to the verse. That'd be nice, wouldn't it, peoples? Anyway, the core in the back of here, when you hit it up, and inside of the other station, when you hit that up and you hit up the option to do with the station override or request the voice of freedom, you get something pop up here that says glass, 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 glass. You also get that inside of a normal station. So it does make you wonder whether these sort of station cores are going to let us access the realm of glass, 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 glass at some point. It also mentions about birthing a new star. So very curious indeed. Yeah, and they've added these in quite recently. And you do see this sort of little guy inside of this Nexus cube, inside of the spatial anomaly, and it does look like one of the servitors from inside of the derelict freighters. Slightly bigger, of course, but again, they're linked to sort of being Sentinelized-esque. And Nada is actually working on a Sentinel on this workbench over here. To what ends? Who freaking knows? And maybe they're looking to see how the technology works to bring them inside of iteration, spawning out of nowhere, realm of glass or the void. And when you think of the actual Nexus, you know, it seems to exist in a realm between realms and can just come in willy-nilly, but it avoids the Atlas and avoids detection from the Sentinels by maybe using the same technologies. I don't know. Where does the Nexus go, and how does it avoid the detection? It doesn't really go into that inside of the lore, does it? So it does make you wonder, if we are to enter into the void or into the actual realm of glass, whether we're going to be using technology provided to us from Anada or Polo. Maybe even the myth beacons that don't have rhyme or reason right now might come into iteration in 2023. So what do we have from the Realm of Glass? Well, if you're thinking about Realm of Glassy type stuff, and it's being linked to the Sentinels, we have a Sentinel drone, Laylapse. The only thing is, Laylapse, did it come from the Realm of Glass? Yes, it did. Inside of the abandoned terminals, when you're hitting up the lore there, apparently a traveller reprogrammed a Sentinel drone, named it Laylapse, and Laylapse helped the traveller escape from the Realm of Glass. And when you read about the Realm of Glass inside of that lore, it's said to be a place full of shards of glass that can cut you without you even noticing, and you just bleed out and die. It sounds horrific. And it sounds like metal screaming inside of the Realm of Glass, which also ties into the Sentinel pillars, where it says, "Hear us sing, hear us scream." Ooh, it makes me cringe just thinking about it. We've also got our own Sentinel quad dog. We can also make our exocraft of the mech that we're getting look very Sentinel-esque. Now, although we get those sort of exotic multi-tools from the Sentinel pillars, we also got given this exotic wing pack. Yeah, we did. And curiously, this came in the Exobiology Expedition, which dropped with Sentinel as an update. We've also got some exotic armour pieces for our actual companions, our pets, which are right there. Again, unlocked inside of that Expedition that dropped with the Sentinel update. I mean, yes, they gave us those sort of exotic multi-tools at the same time, so why not give us a bit more gear? But at the same time, where does all this exotic stuff come from, people in the viewerverse? You got any ideas? Put them inside of the video comments and let us know what you think. Is the Void and the Realm of Glass the same place? Will it come in 2023? Goodbye, and goodbye again. Well, thank you very much for watching. If you like what you see, please hit a like and a subscribe, and I'd like to say a massive great big thank you to all of my backers over on Patreon and over on YouTube membership. Thanking you, backers. And if you want to support this channel, just don't skip the adverts. That throws revenue down my avenue. Or yeah, just stay with Captain Steve that little bit longer and hit something on this screen. There's merch here now too.